Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us here in the ballroom. I'm Paul. I'm from the New P&L Brand Purpose Institute, host of the New P&L Principles in Leadership and Business podcast. I'm moderating the conversation this afternoon. Just before we get into the topic itself, if I can introduce the guests. Eddie, perhaps we start with you. If you could give a brief introduction.
Hi, my name's Eddie Kemsley. I'm the CEO of Dreamland Margate, where you are right now.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm Rick Dodds. I'm the creative partner of purpose-led agency Don't Panic. Excited to talk to you all today.
Afternoon, Chris Bamford, creative director of an agency called Kindred, which specialises in positive change comms. Hello.
So we're here today to discuss faking it and making it, and we're looking at how we balance the ethical and commercial line between the ethics that we want within our clients and doing the greater good, but also the pragmatism, the commercial pragmatism of running an agency. And everyone in the creative world wants to abide by their principles and live by their purpose, but sometimes that balance is challenging. And sometimes because of the way industries change and ethics change and values change, what was an ethical client maybe 20 years ago has changed by today's assessment. So what we'd like to do today is talk a bit about how we weave that ethical process into our clients' assessment and into the business that we run, but also what those practical solutions are and those opportunities for anyone listening today who may be thinking about how do we drive more towards our principles, how do we assess the ethical suitability of our clients, what those solutions look like in practical reality. So Eddie, perhaps if we start with you. Chris and Rick are agency side. You are brand side. You've got an incredible venue here, but I know that when we spoke in the lead up to this, there are certain clients that you will and you won't work with, just based on the ethical principles of Dreamland itself. And I wondered if you could talk me through what those ethical principles are and how you make that assessment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're a small business, and it's really difficult as a small business to really focus on that side of things when you're also focused on trying to make a profit or trying to get into profitability, and lots of venues and lots of businesses like ours when they start out aren't profitable, and it takes a few years to get to that point. So it's really difficult to turn business down. Shareholders and investors are just focused on the bottom right-hand corner, and they're not necessarily always, especially in smaller businesses, interested as much in the credentials around the kind of morals and values side of things as we are and our team here are. So we've had things come across our desks or opportunities come our way, and for those of you that don't know Dreamland, we are part amusement park, we're part live music venue, we're part events and conference business, as we're doing today, and we work across quite a broad spectrum of kind of clients. So we do everything from film shoots to advertising to filming adverts and that kind of thing, fashion shoots, we book bands, and we work with food and beverage as well. So we work with a lot of food and beverage brands. So we've had stuff come across the desk, and we've had, just as an example, about 18 months ago, we had a major brewery approach us that wanted to come and take over all of our beer, and we weren't that keen because a lot of the stuff that was going on in the press about that particular business at the time wasn't things that aligned with what we're trying to achieve here and what we're trying to do, and we really pride ourselves as being independent as possible. We've had for example, major fast food chains that make hamburgers, I won't name them because this is being filmed, I don't want to get into trouble, approach us and say, it'd be brilliant if we could put one of our franchises into your site, it's perfect for it, and to be honest with you, it would make me more money than working with the independent burger chain. Some of you might have seen outside, we've got Rab Burger here, who are a local burger company. They make the most, if you haven't tried them, the most amazing burgers you've ever had. There you go, it's my plug for Rab Burger. But they're not going to make me anywhere near as much money as it would working with a major international franchise. It's just not. But it's not what we do. It's not what Dreamland's about. It's not part of our brand value and our vision for the site. And so we make those difficult decisions to say, look, we're not going to work with X. We're going to stick local, or we're going to stick with an independent. We're going to stick with a brand that we really like the look and feel of, someone that aligns with us, with what we do. It does work for us because we do get recognition, I think, for the brands that we do work with. Now, we haven't litmus tested that necessarily because we haven't put a brand that we're not keen on in to see how our consumers would react, but we're pretty sure we know how they'd feel about it. So it's a really tricky one. And as I said, look, we're a small business. We're hospitality. The last couple of years have been unbelievably tough for us, and that makes it even harder when we're being approached by people who want to come and slap brand all over the site with various things, for us to turn those opportunities down. But we have to stick to what we think is right and fits not only ethically but creatively into the spaces that we've got and the vision we're trying to create for our site.
And actually, you raised some really interesting points, Chris, that I'd like to start addressing with you. Obviously, as an agency, you're very, very keen to work with clients, but the ethical impact and the focus that you have at Kindred means that probably sometimes clients are looking to work with you to leverage the ethical nature of Kindred. And I wondered how you manage that balance, because every agency needs to grow, every agency needs to manage all of the commercial implications of turning down a client. But those that want to leverage your brand, how do you balance that expectation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And when we turn down 60% of pitch requests, and I don't know how that actually tallies with the rest of sort of agency land, but there was also a kind of pivotal moment, I think, for Kindred. So it's 21 years old this year, I think, and it's always had positive change at its heart. But it was really in 2018 where it became the sort of the driving proposition, and it was at that point that the management team actually had to jettison about a third of the clients, which is a gradual transition, and there were lots of conversations about whether those clients wanted to come on that journey with us to really make positive change and make work that was impactful and wasn't just this, as we've talked about, this veneer or this sort of plastic purpose. And those were very difficult conversations, and that was 2018, and then obviously we had a pandemic, boo, and things got really tough. But I mean, the management team, to be fair, stuck to those principles. And what it actually did, in a way, is it gave us the space and the headspace and the resource to concentrate on the clients that we wanted to. And we found that really by kind of doubling down on those, by increasing our marketing, by talking more about what we were doing and this proposition, this philosophy, which I think, as you were saying, Eddie, is it's not niche anymore. It's non-negotiable for most audiences that we talk to, and that's only going to keep sort of rising in that direction. So I think we did kind of ride a tide. It was tough, but we'd also, we'd been doing it for 21 years. So it wasn't that we weren't doing it when it was trendy and profitable. We were doing it when it was deeply untrendy and not very profitable. So yeah, I mean, we still tread that line. We have a really simple, I guess, kind of mantra, which is, is this going to make a positive change? Is it going to make stuff better? Is it going to make stuff better for either people or communities or the planet? And within that, there's subjectivity. Some of us have opinions, or we all have opinions. We have differing opinions. Sometimes a brief can land which, on the face of it, there is no positive change in there. Yes. But sometimes after conversations with that client about their ongoing ambition, there's a question of is there good in all clients or in all brands, and do they want to do good, and what stage of their journey are they on? So yeah, we do go into a lot. We turn down 60%, but we do look at a lot of things with a very sort of open mind, and really do try and mine and search for the positive change within every brief.
Yeah. And Rick, from your perspective, I think one of the challenges businesses have, and one of the mistakes perhaps that we make sometimes, we establish a business with a set of principles and purpose, and we remain fixed to those, but circumstances change, industry changes. I mean, look at what we've experienced in the last decade, from a financial crisis to a pandemic to what we have now. How do we evolve our principles but still keep true to the essence of what we want to be as an agency, but still ensure they reflect where we are at any given point?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And Don't Panic actually started, the first clients Don't Panic ever had were charities and NGO clients. So it naturally started from a purposeful place. Again, very much like yourself, Kindred, long before it was a buzzword, and long before there was a panel about it. Like that was just the essence of how it started. And then what we've done to that point in evolution is grow from charities and NGOs to purpose-led clients. So small startup businesses that have taken on the bigger brands by launching with a more purposeful way of doing things, a better way to manufacture their products, a better way to stand for something, by simply they're buying their product, you're making a more positive kind of contribution to the world than buying a kind of a bigger competitor. So we've evolved and grown out that way. But at the same time, other agencies who have got those bigger brands can still do that because there is still scope to evolve in that. Those bigger companies where they, if you look at something like, the ITV work, for example, where they're utilising their reach, they're utilising their ability to affect people in their homes to send a positive message. That's an incredible thing where they've been able to push it bigger. And at the same time, with bigger brands that might not be able to change their manufacturing processes overnight, but they can do meaningful activations that have a positive effect on the world, not greenwashing, but ideas that actually are real and having a meaningful effect. So although purpose very much started in one place, which is NGOs and charities, it's now stretching. And I think more than ever it needs to do that, especially because we live in the age of the conscious consumer, where they're making decisions based on the ethics behind a brand and what that decision means about them as a person who they're buying. So we have to evolve, and the good thing is, I think agencies are doing so, and I think the more agencies do, it's not just about one or two agencies doing it, but about as a collective all agencies doing it and brands doing it, then will lead to a better place.
One of the, skepticisms that we have around purpose and in any industry, but particularly in the creative industries as well, is that they're often virtue signaled, they're grand statements, but they don't actually reflect the machinations of the business every day. And I'd love to get the opinion of the panel as something small every day in your agency or a Dreamland as well that reflects the core values. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having those grand statements. There's nothing wrong with delivering big milestones. But what creates the momentum every day in terms of the purpose? Chris, if we start with you.
As in at Kindred or for our clients?
At Kindred, how do you deliver it within the business? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not saying there's a specific type of Kindred person because we're very open to anybody, but I think that the type of staff we attract and we retain, and we have a very high retention rate, are those who, they bring their whole selves to work. I mean, that's, you kind of, again, it's sort of, sometimes you work in agencies, and I've worked in agencies where there's sort of slightly Chinese walls of kind of, over there they're working on Dove Real Beauty, and over here we're working on Lynx, which is very not Real Beauty back in the day. So there's none of that. There's sort of everybody is from the same kind of cut from the same cloth to a degree in terms of their philosophies and their beliefs. And also we're very democratic in how we go about choosing which clients we work for and which clients ultimately we might choose to no longer work for. And that is a conversation when we triage that starts with, yes, a small group of the management team, but then there's equal weighting for the staff that are going to work on it, the admin support. Anybody who is in that agency should have an opinion on whether or not we work for Rent-A-Kill or whether we work for, another brand. Yeah, so I think it's sort of, I can't sort of keep saying enough that it sort of has to sort of flow through your entire DNA and the way that you recruit and the way that you operate on a day-to-day basis. And I think even with creativity, it's sort of, I'm probably a slightly different CD in that, I've worked at agencies where, brainstorm is a sort of swear word. And for me, I don't see why I wouldn't want the 40, 50 brains in Kindred to have an input into the way that a campaign is being developed. So, yeah, we're very democratic, basically.
Eddie, from your perspective?
I'll caveat again, we're a small business, but we have something called the Brand Council at Dreamland, and it cuts right through the organisation. All levels are involved in it, and we get together hopefully on about a fortnightly basis. Certainly in the off season, it's a bit harder when we're really, really busy, but we get together about every 2 weeks, and all of those questions around brands that we'll work with, acts that we would be prepared to book, providers that we'll work with go to brand council, and it's a really simple format. I'm not trying to say that it's very complicated. We get together, we have a coffee, and we go, right, this has come across the desk, what does everybody think? And everybody gets a say, and everybody gets a vote, and we talk about affordability. So we say, can we afford to do this if it's something that's going to cost us money to implement, or can we not afford to do this if it's something that's offering us money? And that's really the kind of the two things that we look at. Can we not afford to do it? You know, how are our audience going to feel about this? How are our customers going to feel about this if we don't do it? Is that something that we just can't afford to overlook? And obviously the other way as well. Like, you know, yes, money's great, but what's the impact? What else could happen because of that? So our small but beautifully formed brand council get together and they make the decisions, and it's completely democratic. And I'm in that council, but I'm just one of the council. It's chaired and run by one of our managers who's here today, over there. And she runs it, and she decides what we talk about, and people send her, you know, ideas, thoughts, brands that want to work with us, etc., and say, well, how do we feel about it? And we have a coffee and we take a vote, and it's that simple.
And Rick, from your perspective?
I mean, I'm a creative, probably like many people in this room, and what drives me every day is the work, right? It's getting to that great idea, that you can't wait to tell somebody about, and I know every creative I've ever worked with is driven by that same thing. And a couple of good things happen when that brief comes in. It's a purposeful one. For starters, you mostly get to do pretty out there creative, the most kind of spiky, interesting creative work, because the conversation you're having is already an interesting one, and one that people give a damn about. So you're able to do slightly more interesting work. So straight away, the head's feeling pretty happy about that. And then I think another thing happens when it's purposeful. If you put the most brilliant piece of work out there and you see it get the consumer press headlines and you see the likes going up and you start conversations, if the end goal of that piece of work is a purposeful end goal, then it's a double win. Because that means that piece of work you just put out there has just raised donations for this charity. It's just changed perspectives of this really important issue over here. It's just challenged a whole sector of how maybe they make their product, and maybe they should make it in a different way, a more ethical, interesting way. So not only have you done great creative work, but you've done something really important. And I think one thing I love the most at Don't Panic is hearing creatives talk about results. I've never really heard creatives talk about results of the work before. They talk about the work. But when the results are not, oh, we sold X amount more of this soft drink to whomever, but when those results are, we raised these donations, or we started this conversation over here that's led to this, or we changed this perspective, that means more. And as wonderful and as brilliant and creative work is still my engine, is still my drive, when that work goes out there and it makes real world change, it is doubly most satisfying. And that, I think, is kind of where sometimes purpose might look like it might be bland or boring, but actually purpose actually allows you to make work that hits the head and the heart, and I think that's quite a powerful thing.
Chris, you talked about turning down 60% of the clients that potentially come through your door. Eddie, you mentioned a large hamburger producer and a large brewery that you didn't work with. I wondered what the panel's view was on whether ultimately that means businesses that are more ethically led, more principled led, whether they're smaller ultimately or just different. Where is the end game commercially for the business? Eddie, perhaps we start with you.
Oh God, I mean, that's a really difficult question. I mean, you know, we are an independent site, we're privately owned, we're not part of a big organisation. But traditionally, venues like ours will probably be bought up by larger organisations at some point. And I'm not saying that's never going to happen, but that's not how we run our business right now. So, you know, we quite like being small, but we like to think imperfectly formed. That's definitely a position we quite like and we quite enjoy. And it gives us a lot of control over what goes on. So we're happy in that space. We've got a lot of room to grow. We were talking earlier about a lot of space we've got to develop and do exciting things with. But I think, you know, by the nature of our business, our footprint will dictate sort of how large we may be. But I do like to think as a brand that we can still punch above our weight. And, you know, the world is so big and with social media, etc., there's so many ways that you can impact and things that you can do outside of your footprint. So, we've got a goal to continue to grow and continue to develop, even if it's not, through bricks and mortar on site here, but through what we do and how we do it, and the organisations we support, the charities we work with, the space and the platform we're giving to small organisations that we're part of and that we can support wherever we can. So I think we can grow through our partnerships, through brand relationships, through all those organisations that we do work with, if not necessarily as in our business, you talk about kind of the feeling you get about doing something good and doing something that hits headlines, and we can still do that through supporting other organisations too. So we may be limited in some ways, but not in others.
And Chris?
Similar to Eddie, really. Yeah, I think we're happy with our principles, our guiding principles. We're sort of happy with our run rate at the moment in terms of pitch wins and the client portfolio we have. It's incredibly diverse, lots of B Corps, right through to kind of big behemoth entertainment brands and breweries who do want to do good, through to various government departments. So yeah, we're really happy in the direction of travel, to be honest. I think we currently only have a UK footprint, but we are starting to get more pan-European and global work. So that could be the next step. I don't know. I mean, I've been in agencies where there's been buyouts, good and bad. I think really with Kindred, whoever, if they did come in for us, they would have to be taking us whole and the principles that went with it, and they would have to be letting us get into them like an ivy and spreading positive change to their bigger organisation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rick?
I would say that there's too many brands and there's too many agencies for it to ever be limiting in terms of only being purposeful. There's just too much. Layer on top of that, the stretch we were talking about, right? That it's not just charities with the purposeful of brands, but the stretch of bigger brands who are able to do it. So, for example, at Don't Panic, we'd always say we wouldn't advertise a fuel car, but for that big brand, but we would advertise their electric car or their hydrogen car for that big brand because that's their stretch, and we're able to do that. We talk about from a business point of view, it would be the colossal own goal if we were to advertise that fuel car, because for starters, all those brands and charities that look to us and would come to us and ask us to pitch would stop doing it. But that's only a small part of the problem. The bigger part of the problem for me, if we did that, is our team. Because, people come to Don't Panic to work with us because not only to do the best work in their careers, but to hopefully also make a difference. And I'm sure you have a similar thing at Kindred and yourself, but it's like, I can't remember the last time we used a recruiter, because we get so many kind of people emailing us. And I think the truth of the younger generation in particular is the value of your talents and actually want to put your talent to work to help change this world, and not just do it through generosity or through gifts, but actually do it through your talent. And actually, we found that if we were to do that, I think a lot of people who are our engine and are our agency, they'll be the biggest people we let down, because it's a big reason they come to work as well. It is that reason. So I think, for starters, I don't think the numbers I don't think add up to not do it.
I think it's also interesting, to think about really, really big businesses and really, really small businesses, and probably both struggle actually when it comes to this kind of stuff, because when you're really, really small startup business, you're really, really focused on cash flow, and you're focused on numbers, and you're trying to pay payroll every month, and you're trying to make sure that you can survive. And then when you become a really, really big business and you're floated or whatever, then you've got a whole other heap of problems around, profitability, and so it's maybe the middle section that have a better chance. And the case study that everybody in this room probably knows, which is the Lego and Shell model, which is when, for those of you that don't know, when Lego was a very small toy company, they put Shell on all their petroleum vehicles, and they had all their little garages branded Shell because that's what kids recognised and they liked it. We're going back like 50 years now. And then obviously Lego started to grow and became the biggest toy company in the world, and obviously Shell's stock started to drop, and suddenly, organisations like Greenpeace are getting involved and going, guys, you can't do this anymore. You can't put Shell all over your Lego toys. And Lego were big enough then to be able to go, actually, we don't need to, we don't want to, and we're not going to do it anymore. And so I guess it's kind of an interesting way to look at, as companies grow and get bigger, they maybe go through a period where they can or can't do things. And to your point earlier, you've got to keep looking at it and keep changing it depending on the size of your business and the direction of your business and what you're trying to achieve, and also what other companies are doing. And companies are making mistakes. They are doing things that, certainly in the media are letting them down potentially, but are they putting them right? Are they doing things to change that? Are they addressing it head on, etc.? And I don't think you can write organisations off forever. I think you have to constantly look at how they evolve and what they're doing.
I don't think you know this, but we did the campaign for Greenpeace.
Well, I know I didn't.
That led to
like we planned
Shell and Lego
it.
splitting.
I did not know that.
That wasn't planned, but thanks to the little work call out there.
Well.
The key to maintaining any of these ethical principles over time is to embed it into employees' thinking, not just their doing. I wondered what the onboarding process was in each of these businesses. It's much harder to retrofit this thinking 6 months, 12 months, 2 years after someone's in the business. What is the onboarding process to ensure they understand the principles and the purpose from the outset?
I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, really. We are a little bit like you guys in that, we do work with recruiters, I'm going to be honest, but equally we have a lot of people who want to come and work with us and want to come and do the type of work we do. And if anyone in the audience wants to, please, come into my LinkedIn's. I think really it starts at the interview process. It starts with working out again what their own sort of values are without being overly intrusive into their kind of privacy. We're like every agency, we're a people-driven agency. We're a relatively small team. We're kind of 40, 50 flex with freelancers. So personalities matter, principles matter, ethics matter, where you want to go in 5 years, what you want to see the world to be in 5 years, 10 years, all those things matter. And I think as well, we've sort of touched on it a little bit. Another big caveat for us in terms of the work we do and how we triage briefs or potential pitch briefs is essentially kind of, our relationships with the media are key to our success. So we know quite quickly whether or not a particular brand proposition or product or service that they want to launch is going to land with the environmental correspondent of The Guardian, or is going to land on, you're going to try and sell it to a producer on the Today Show. Like, you know these things as well. So I think an understanding as well of the broader media landscape is obviously pivotal for anybody that we work with and we bring on board, and that they understand that there are multiple voices who are trying to create positive change, and it's how you kind of sort of pull those strings and kind of start the fires across the media landscape. It's sort of...
And Rick, from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I agree totally on everything you just said about the onboarding, but I think it's like, it's not just about the onboarding, is it? It's about the retention. You know what I mean? I think it's about, and I think that's a big part of the onboarding too, actually, but it's making sure that people don't come for 2 to 3 years and then leave, because any agency is only as good as the people who are there. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of at Don't Panic is I'm the creative partner, but our strategic partner in the business, Ellie, she started at Don't Panic as an intern. She's now a partner in the business. Our first ever creative director, who we just promoted a year ago, George, he started at Don't Panic as an intern. And so as you join these kind of, whatever discipline, from strategy, production, creative, you're looking at your leadership team. And they started, some of them started as interns in this company. And I think more than any words that we could really say to people when they first start, it's looking at that proof, looking at that career progression. And these are people who are incredibly hungry, incredibly driven, creative. And if you manage to keep them, not only kind of keep their hunger and keep them satisfied and keep them part of the agency, then it must be something that we're doing right. And I think that, it's an old adage, but it's true that actions like that probably do speak louder than any words I could put in a kind of day one email. But I think that is a really important driver, I think, to your point too.
And Eddie, from your perspective, does it help bring people into Margate to work for Dreamland? How do you bring people in? How do you onboard them and deliver your purpose and principles?
When I first started to be involved in Margate in 2013, 2013, 2014, it was really hard to recruit. There weren't a lot of creative people in the town, and it had just started, the regeneration of Margate had just started. Now, it's amazing. We have this huge creative community here, all sorts of disciplines, people doing, the amount of emails and contacts I get on LinkedIn now from people going, I do this, and I live in Margate now, and I do this, and, we have to look for some positives from the last couple of years, and it's definitely been one for us here, is this huge amount of creatives coming down to enjoy living by the sea, and people not having to commute 5 days a week into London. I mean, they're setting up practice down here, and they're taking space down here. We have a collective of artists on site with us called Resort. If you haven't been to see them, do go and see them. They're just through by the roller disco, and we've got 35 artists who work on site of all sorts of different disciplines. Because they were going to be homeless, they didn't have a studio space, and so we said, well, come and stay with us for a bit, we'll look after you. And we've seen this huge growth of people, and in, mass generalization now here, but generally we find that a lot of those people are aligned with our principles and our values, or I should really say actually we're aligned with theirs, because they're more purposeful than we are, and we have, Dreamland, we have to be honest about how purposeful we can be, because we're still in the early days of our business, but having those people here, having that creativity, that inspiration here, having all these amazing people setting up shop, down here has given us a huge, a wealth of experience to work with, and we work with a lot of consultants, so we use a lot of people, we bring them in for projects, we bring them in for things we're trying to do or achieve, whether that's, theming and dressing, whether that's coming up with brand propositions, whether that's creating new events and experiences for our site, and it's brilliant that we have them all here, and it's been a huge change in the last 10 years. I don't know how many people there are that are local in the room, but I think they'd all probably agree that Margate's just transformed and still on a journey, it's still on a real journey. It's still a very gritty town. But I think personally that's massively part of the appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. I wondered whether the panel thought that sometimes when you look at an agency, you look at any business for that matter, and they want to move from here to here, and they believe that they have to be here tomorrow. But it's a journey to become ethical, to become more principled, to apply your purpose. But in a world where so much light has shone so often on the mistakes we're making rather than the good we're doing, I wonder whether that sense of panic is creating some inertia in some agencies' movement towards applying a more ethical stance, whereas it should be the integrity of the intention rather than the shade of the perfection, if you like. And I'd love to get your view on that. Perhaps, Rick, we start with you.
Yeah, well, I think we are seeing a shift of, more and more agencies and more brands wanting to do purposeful work. And I think that is because, every generation has always had people who want change throughout history. But I think, the younger generation of today, there's probably more of them, and they're probably louder, and they're probably doing it better as well. And they've got more tools to encourage that. And I think, you'd have to be tone deaf not to hear that. And I think some more agencies are evolving, are doing more different work. And I think the other thing is, interestingly, I think sometimes when we talk about purposeful work, people think serious. They think like, if there's a purposeful ad, it's really serious. It's got a really serious tone. Here comes that plinky plonky piano music, with the overly gravelly voiceover, and purposeful work can be mad. Purposeful work can be hilarious. It can be the funniest. It has the right to be the funniest. You know what I mean? And I think that the more purposeful is not a tone. Purposeful just means that if you are successful in that brief, that there's going to be a positive benefit for the planet. And we say like a great comedian can leave their audience feeling better than they did before they saw them, and I think that is purpose too. So I think that one thing I think we're increasingly, and one thing I'm very passionate about and seeing more agencies do, is when they get a purposeful thing, they don't go, here's the boring plinky plonky piano music and the boring ad. Let's be fun, let's be mad, let's be engaging, let's be creative, let's be different, let's be brave, let's be bold. It should be the most creative brief you ever get.
I think you've just rewritten our purpose there. I'm going to use all those words because that's, from our point of view, we just want people to have fun. That's our purpose, and we're very bold and we're very open about that. And whether you're, you know, a 3-year-old going on your first little ride, or whether you're coming with the other 6,500 people to watch a band perform outside, or whatever you're coming for, we just want you to have fun, and I think that's okay. I don't think we have to be, you know, we have to force any more than that. I think we can be, our purpose can be about fun, and people need fun, and everyone wants to enjoy themselves and have good leisure time. We just need to underpin that with some good values and good morals, I think.
Completely.
Chris.
I totally agree on the earnest thing. I think that for a long time, awards were sort of full of, as you say, you knew you were getting a purpose entry if you were judging an award, because it was this very ominous piano, and it was sort of like, the world is fucked. But with this new yogurt, it's not. And yeah, that happened for a couple of years. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I suppose it's so different for me, because like, it's not when the purpose brief lands, it's like every brief is the purpose brief. So I'm kind of like, woo. And some are tougher than others. To your point about the madness, we pitched compostable coffins recently. I think we're a bit ahead of the curve. I know it's taken off in LA and in California, but the brand in the UK wasn't quite ready for it yet. But watch this space, compostable coffins coming soon.
I mean, there's a brief right there. Like, yeah, work together on that. I don't know.
But I think there can be. We had a quick chat about this yesterday. I mean, there's a client we're working with at the moment, and they really are coming at it from all the right places. They're kind of, you know, you can quite quickly triage sometimes whether people are genuine about how much positive change they actually want to elicit. And you can ask, like, you know, who are your sponsors within that organization? Like, how high up the food chain is this going? Is this going to CEOs? Is this going to stakeholders? And it's like, yes, it is. It's okay. How much are you willing to change? Not just of your marketing and your communications, but of your actual business and your infrastructure. Yeah, we're willing to change product. We're willing to change the packaging. We're willing to do all this stuff. And we're like, this is amazing. And they still had this reticence. They were like, but if we do it, we're worried that audiences won't think we're authentic and won't think that because we haven't done it before. And it's like, well, you're making all the right noises, and you should do it. You should definitely do it, because you do have the right motivations behind why you're doing it. And you're kind of, let us be the arbiters and let me help you and guide you through that. Because if we know that we can sell it to the aforementioned, you know, environmental editor of The Guardian or Today Program or whoever else, just trust us, take our hand, and we will take you there. And audiences will come with you, and they'll realize it's a journey, and that they might not have seen this previously from you as a brand. But as you gradually start to introduce that it is part of your, not just your comms, but your offering, they'll come with you.
Can I ask a question? Are there times when you work with brands where you say, you should do this and we're going to help you do it, but you shouldn't shout about it? Because it could be damaging to the consumer to understand. You haven't, I don't know, let's say people that use single-use plastic or something like that, and they're going to change that. Are there times when you say, right, let's do this, and let's get it right, and let's make sure, you know, your website reflects that you do it, but we're not going to go out with a big PR campaign and tell the world that you've made this change?
It happens quite a lot in terms of just sort of getting your house in order first. So I think there's a conversation that usually happens as opposed to this organisation, this brand, this portfolio brands that were willing to do it all. They're quite often people want to skip to, you know, they want to skip to the video, and they want to skip to the experience and the event and the fun stuff, and it's all right. It's like, yeah, but probably as was discussed in the previous session, it's like, yeah, but your diversity pay gap is fucking awful, or your carbon footprint is, you know, shocking, or your competitors are doing all this. You shouldn't raise your head above the parapet until you've sort your house out, basically, and then when we'll help you do that, and then we'll do that.
I think it comes down to meaningful acts. Like, if you're a brand and you're going to do something in that, if you're not a purpose-filled driven brand, but you're trying to go into that space, anything you do has to be meaningful, and it has to be all the way through. You know what I mean? You might not be able to change your manufacturing, but as long as the thing you're going to do over here, look at Corona, forever have been selling beers based on the beach. But then when they did a meaningful activation around it and gave fishermen in the countries a way to make money over getting that plastic out of the ocean, that became a meaningful act. So even though they're probably not a purposeful driven band, they were able to do something that was real and all the way through the company. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, like, you know, brands got to be very careful. There's, you know, as they should be. There is a, you know, greenwashing is a conversation, and that's absolutely the right conversation to be having, because purpose has to have depth. Otherwise, it's not purpose. So yeah.
So I want to ask one final question before we open the floor for 5 minutes before the end. This is about having conversations at this festival, but it's also about providing solutions to the audience and to challenging the industry and to moving the industry forward in our own small way. So I'd like each of the panellists to leave one recommendation as to what everyone in this audience could do tomorrow, one action, one thought, one movement or creation, momentum forward in their business tomorrow or in their own role as an employee or as a leader, that they could move towards purpose tomorrow. What's the one thing you would recommend they do, small or big? Rick, I'll start with you.
I was going to say, that's the hardest question of the day. Please don't come to me first. You've got your answer?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to. I thought
too
you were
good. That's it.
saving me there.
Made a rod for your own back. She's been too good.
That would just happen. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I think if you're a big client or you work at a big agency, I think it's the opportunity to take those bigger corporate clients and start that journey with them. Yes, you might not be able to change plastic bottle manufacturing, but you might be able to come up with an activation that they can authentically and credibly do that brings good to the world. And I think if you're starting off your career, I think that it's probably look to work with, I think the most important thing you can do is look to work with a set of human beings who have very similar kind of morals and very similar sort of kind of way of working that you have. Because I can tell you from 20 years doing this, the most enjoyable work atmosphere in the world is when you're working with like-minded people and everybody has the same values you do. And it is so black and white, the difference between that. So I would say if you're starting off, choose a team of people who share your values and you will have a much more fun career if you didn't.
Eddie, from your perspective.
It's really hard because it depends what angle you're coming at it from, but I would probably say don't bite off more than you can chew. I think baby steps, we've touched on this quite a bit, but this whole idea of thinking that you can save the planet with your small business in a local area or whatever is not, it's not realistic. So it's baby steps and thinking about what can you do that you can genuinely stick to, deliver, that's affordable and that's realistic. So yeah, don't bite off more than you can chew.
And Chris?
Just echo everything everyone said, really. I think stay positive. You can make change. Everybody in this room, every day, every person can make changes. And as you say, it's baby steps, it's nudges, it's small incentives or small rewards or small ways of incrementally progressing. History is on your side. I do believe that. I believe that. I want to believe that governments or bigger organisations will come to our thinking and are coming around to it and have to. So yeah, kind of stay positive, work with people you like and love, and go to the pub on a Friday, I think would be all right.
An ethical pub.
They're still open.
If they're still open, yeah.
We've got a couple of minutes left, so if there's any questions, yes.
Gustav Martler is the head of creative at Greenpeace Nordic, and he went up on the first day of Cannes Festival and took his award back on stage for Volkswagen ad that he'd got an award, a Lion for. And then he unfurled a banner saying there's no advertising on a dead planet. Do you know about that? And there's just not a lot of people who do know about that, but he was really making a stand about fossil fuel advertising and saying that it should be banned, like tobacco advertising, because it's just as harmful. I wondered how you all felt about that, about taking that sort of stand.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that advertising, we talked about, rules have changed so much. Do you know what I mean? Like when I was a child, I think there's probably cigarette advertising out there. Do you know what I mean? So I think there is a change like that. And I think we all have to make our own personal statements, however we feel they're the best ways to make. I mean, there won't be any fossil fuel cars soon to advertise, so that's a good thing. But I think it is, I think it's commendable in a way for anybody to make the stance about the fact that, advertising does have a power. And we do have an ability to change agendas, change government agendas, mobilize people, and I think that using that power for good is a great thing. And I think that, personal moments like that are down to the individual, and I think it, fair play to him for doing it. He was banned from the passport.
One more question. There we go over here.
Thank you. Hi. I just wondered if any of your organisations are B Corps, and either way, what you think about the idea of using something like B Corporation to help form purpose in an organisation if it's necessary.
We're B Corps pending, and that's all I know about the subject, to be honest with you. But yeah, I know that we've applied and trying to be a B Corps, but that's as far as I could tell you from a creative point of view. But it's a great question. I wish my FD was here, because I know they could talk to you for a while about that.
We work with a lot of B Corps, and actually, yeah, we actually got ours yesterday. We got a score of 100.4, if that means anything. And yeah, it is. I think it was only held up because of kind of paperwork and the pandemic and various other things. But I suppose, again, I'm just being really sort of repeating myself, but I think because we kind of lived it for so long, it felt like the way which we operate sort of environmentally, socially, our governance, the way we treat our staff, everything kind of aligned. And also it's very difficult to work with a lot of B Corps and tell them what to do if you're not one yourself. So it became quite awkward without having that badge.
I want to thank the panellists, Eddie, Rick and Chris. Really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, so thank you all, and thank you everyone for coming. Give them a big hand.
Thank you all.
Thank you.